Hello, this is Arnel Tanyag with Tanyag Company. I am doing a talk today on the skills that you need to have to improve your networking. So it's 7 skills that improve your networking, go from amateur to professional. And the reason I'm talking about this because I see a surge of people networking but not getting a lot of success. There's some people that are just dominating the market. Other people are just going out there to network. So I'm just sharing the 7 skills. Today I'm going to talk about part 1. And the reason I'm talking about this is I'm a membership chair of the Builders Association of CVBIA, Coastal Virginia Building Industry Association. And part of the membership committee, one of the things I'm doing that if the membership committee members want to, I'm going to show them how to network and get business from the association and really help them do that. Because in the business that I've been in over the last 25 years and working in B&I and learning from 7L, Michael Mayer, and 7 Levels of Communication, reading books on, giving, books on referrals, relationships, that I believe that I have a certain knowledge, expertise, and wisdom from doing this type of video and this training. So today I'm going to talk about part 1. And part 1, where I don't think people realize this, is do you know reciprocity style? So do you know your reciprocity style, and or can you recognize other people's reciprocity style? So on the screen, there's a book written by Adam Grant called Give and Take. Powerful book. It was first mentioned when I was in training with Michael J. Mayer, 7 Levels of Communications. He said, you really need to read Give and Take. When I read that book about 12, 13, 14 years ago, I was like, oh my God, that's one of the reasons I'm having a hard time in getting referrals and building relationships. And he talks about a reciprocity style. And where most people don't know, there's only 3 types. There's givers, matchers, and takers. Again, there's givers, matchers, and takers. And and Adam Grant did a phenomenal book and talked about all 3 and how each drives success. Well, if you want to be a great networker and you want to be somebody who builds their business off relationships and referrals, you got to know this skill of recognizing reciprocity styles. You really need to know how to recognize reciprocity styles and how it shows up in the business community. How does it show up in you and who you're networking, building relationships with? And Adam Grant wrote a book, Give and Take, Why Helping Others Drive Our Success. So he defined it in givers are characteristics that focuses on others and willing to help without expecting immediate or specific returns. They contribute to the well-being of others. I mean, they share knowledge and most valuable connections. There'll be, in some point down the road, I'll share one of the skills called the 6 profiles of giving. Well, there's a givers. And what he said, Adam Grant said, there's 2 types. There's selfish giver and there's self-protecting. A selfless giver is somebody who keeps giving, and expecting people to give back to them. And they just overgive, thinking like, well, I'm not getting enough referrals. I keep giving. And then you get so upset, you get so frustrated because you think that since I'm giving to them, they may not understand. I'll just give them more. That means introductions, support, and help. And you find out they're really not helping you. And then you get upset. You become a matcher. And then there's selfish givers. There's a selfish. I was that many years, man. I tell you what, I would get upset. I would keep giving. I get frustrated. I just didn't understand why. And I didn't understand what process styles. And then Adam Grant talks, there's self-protecting giving. I call it strategic givers. And what they know is they'll give without any expectation and give to people. Like I'll give you an example. I had somebody called me and asked me, hey, what do you think about this? And I said, all right, let me talk after 5 o'clock. And I spent about 30, 45 minutes and, talk him through this and say, here's what I think you should do, just as that. He said, are you going to charge me? No, really. Well, I'm going to charge you $150 just to give you some information that will help you, or I don't know if it will help you or not, but that's my opinion. And he was very thankful, and that's okay. I mean, I've known the gentleman. He worked with me in the past. Well, why don't I charge him for that? I mean, I only want people to invest and work with my company, me, if it's a long-term goal or it's a project that we know we can identify. So, I gave without any expectation. And then the self-protect givers, or I call strategic givers, they protect themselves so they don't get what they call generosity burnout, or they position themselves to know when to give and when not to give. And when they do give, they're able to know that they're identifying which relationships they consistently give to that strategically will benefit them long term wise. And the person they're giving is most likely a self protecting giver or strategic giver. And the other thing too is that they're okay with that, because there are people out there that if you give to them strategically, or self protecting protects you, I call it strategic givers, it'll come back your way. But most people, when they don't understand their reciprocity style, they're usually selfless givers. They keep giving, 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 even when they hurt themselves, meaning that they don't get anything in return. They get really upset. They just want to give more. And they have to realize is that that's because it's it's a flawed it's a flaw of not understanding the reciprocity style. And I did it. It really gave me generosity burnout, and really set me back. Probably the first 10 years of me doing my business, I didn't understand that. The other one, takers, these are people who prioritize their own interests and seek maximum their benefit from interactions. They're so self-focused, they're less inclined to help others unless they perceive a personal advantage. So again, unless they know they can get something from you that gives them an edge. Very few people are really takers and takers and takers. I mean, there's a very few people are. I mean, I think most people think they are takers, and it's interesting. I think there are probably more matchers than takers, but remember, a taker is really just going to take everything and everything, and then lo and behold, they think that you have something for them that gets an advantage. They may want to work with you, so you need to be aware of that. The other one that I see most of the time is matchers. They usually strive for fairness and balance in their interaction. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. They usually see reciprocity as favors and contributions. And I think there's what I call high degree matchers and low degree matchers. I think, and I just from my experience, low degree matchers, they probably were a selfless giver, and became a matcher because they didn't want to get burned. But once they are able to help you, once you help them, they're a strong giver. And there's high degree matchers where they'll give to you if they feel that you have something for them, but it's not it helps them, but they'll give you automatically. Like I have several people that I know are high degree matchers, and the only way that we work together is I have something they want, and in turn I'll help them, and then I'll ask them for help. And that's okay. I mean, I didn't understand it until I read the book Give and Take. So again, there's matchers, there's givers and takers. So how do you apply this? So let me tell you how you apply it. First of all, make sure you take on Adam Grant's information. Make sure that you actually take his test on reciprocity style. First of all, that'll tell you what percentage are you giver, match, or taker. Like I'm a high percent giver, right? I'm a giver, so I use it. Now, over the years, I've learned I give with no expectation, right? And I do that looking to see if somebody is also a giver. And so if you give the givers first, right, and they're a high, a strategic giver or a high self-protecting giver, they'll give back automatically, right? If you give to somebody, if I give somebody and they're not showing appreciation, thank you, or not saying, hey, how can I help you? They're probably a matcher, right? And I've seen that before. So I've learned how to use this information to protect me, because one of the things, if people know I'm a great connector, I'm a great giver, but I just need to find out if people, first of all, are going to appreciate, see my value, and want to give something in return. So first of all, I said, determine your reciprocity style. That's very important. Number two, then look for givers, especially successful givers who are influential, wealthy, or in your niche. Most successful businesses, and there's some exceptions, are built by self-protecting givers, or I call strategic givers. They have built organizations, companies. You won't know unless you have studied Give and Take, the book, and Matchers, Givers, and Takers. And a lot of them are in associations professional trader associations, where you're spending about $850 to $1,000 a year. That's just the membership, and there's probably more money you have to spend, but you'd be surprised. A lot of the people there are successful givers. So you want to look for that. And people will say, how do you determine if they're a successful giver? Well, the first sign is you see them. The first thing they'll say to, how can I help you? Or when you are helping them, they'll say thank you for what you do, or they'll give you help or give you a referral first. I remember I was at a event and I was doing the sign-in sheet, and one of the influential people I know, he came out and he said, "Hey, Arnel, you're doing a great job. Here's a little bit of food and drink." I was like, this is amazing. I mean, most people don't do that. That's like blown away. And then somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, man, what can I do to help you? I mean, you've been helping the organization. How can I help you?" I was like, wow. Right. And, I was like, I mean, successful givers who are influential, they don't give initially. You have to earn the right to be in a position to earn that right to ask. And they will, because if you're going out and giving and really meeting the goals of what's important to them, most likely you build a relationship with them, they will. So that's one way. And then the other thing, what you do, takers are always asking. And when you go back to them and ask for their help, they'll ghost you. Or you'll get in a fight with them, or they'll respond in a way that you don't ask. Now, with a matcher, I've seen with matchers, when you meet with them, they have to determine, or you have to determine what's important to them, so they will give you something in return. You give them something. Sometimes it's pretty easy because they tell you, here's what I'm looking for. And you'll say, okay, great. Now, if I'm giving this to you, you'll give this to me. And the other times, what I find out with matchers that's really interesting is that you need them, like if you're doing a networking group, because they keep it fair. If you have a bunch of takers in the room, and I can see that by just how they respond, how they do their networking, build relationships. If you don't have a bunch of matchers and givers, they won't hold the takers accountable. And it's surprising that what you'll find out is most people are somewhat matchers in the beginning because they're cautious, but then a lot of times they open up because they know they know your value, they know you're a good person, you care. Very rare are people really self-protecting giving, and if they are very influential, it takes a little bit of time to earn it. But you can say, they'll ask you how you can help you. They'll say, thank you for what you do. Can I give you help? Or I've seen people give you a referral right off the bat because they just need your help. The interesting thing, what you want to do is you want to be good at recognizing how you see the signs, because it is an art of recognizing givers, takers, and matchers. And I can know, like if I do pro bono work to build a relationship with somebody and there's no appreciation, there's no thank you, or like, hey, how can I help you or introduce you? I'm like, okay, this is probably matching. Then I say, okay, I'm going to do this for you, but I need this from you in turn. And you can watch for the signs. Another sign is like you talk to people and say, hey, that person's a great connector. They make introductions and they introduce you to people. I'm like, wow, that's the person that I want to build a relationship with. Those are connectors. Connectors are usually givers and great givers. Matchers, you'll know, because typically you'll see them in groups or interact. They won't give you anything unless they know they want something from you. And I tell you, if you want something from a matcher, I tell people it's negotiation, pure negotiation. I want this for that. Even more importantly for takers. So the last thing I want you to remember with this skill, give and take, you really want to understand the reciprocity style. Are you a giver, taker, matcher first? And then who are you dealing with? Which reciprocity style are they? It's one of the things you have to really understand so that you are not sabotaging yourself to believe that they're not going to help you. They will. You just got to understand, if you're talking to a giver, if it's selfless or self-protecting, how to approach them. How do I build that relationship? How do I make it worthwhile for them to give back to me? If you're dealing with the matcher, how do I set that up? What's equal exchange? What do they need from me when they're? If you're sure dealing with a take, and there are a few out there, you really have to be very persistent. I'll do this for you. Now, and the most important thing, what you'll find out that's even crazy, most people don't even know their reciprocity style. I mean, I know people, they think they're givers in business, but they're really not. They may be givers personally, but they're not givers in business. I mean, I know somebody who's very always likes to give to everybody personally, but in the business, he's more a matcher, right? And people are like, really? Yeah. I mean, he doesn't offer, he asks a lot. But in the outside of business, he's giving money to charities. He's active in his church, but business is matching. And it's sad because, it's interesting. I tell why it's sad, because you should be both. You just got to know how to help, how to be strategic in helping, and how to negotiate and in terms that it helps you, it helps the other person, and how to understand their reciprocity style so that you are still giving without being burnt out. Because one of the biggest things without knowing the reciprocity style, if you're a giver, you'll have generosity burnout, and then you'll go to matching. And then I think you'll lose great opportunity, because people out there are looking for givers, but they're looking for givers who are calm, who are willing to help, but also they're willing to know that it will come around, but you'll know how to help that person come around. Not manipulate them, not force them, but help them help you get business and referrals. And all the years I've been doing it, I'm always looking for strategic givers who are influential, who are wealthy, or in positions of influence or power, because if you build a relationship with them, you're able to help them. You just, as a self-protecting giving, you just got to ask for help. That's one of the biggest challenges. I learned this from Michael Mayer. You have to be a generous giver and appreciated receiver. And to be an appreciated receiver is and I find out you got to ask, because most of the time generous givers give a lot, but they don't always ask. And that comes back to learning how to communicate. But if you understand the reciprocity style, you'd be surprised at how powerful it is when it comes your way. So again, the skill, part one, is knowing what your reciprocity style is and what other reciprocity styles out there in the business community, so that you know what their style is and reciprocity, so you can be in a better position to make not only win to win for them as much as you, but then you won't let it sabotage you. All right. Thanks a lot for watching this. Thank you. And you have a great day.